Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. We're coming to you live from Sydney. So thank you for making some time to be with us for AI plus Unity CDP plus Eloqua. Let's walk through the agenda and welcome and housekeeping. We'll do a little recap of episode 1, I suppose, and 2, really, because we're now on episode 3, where a CDP fits into your architecture, fueling AI and Eloqua with a CDP, and a little bit of a sneak peek at the roadmaps. This is a great thing about having Oracle on the call, right? We get a little sneak peek at these roadmap preview and AI in action as well. And so let me introduce you to who's with us today. So Jackson, thank you for joining us. Jackson has worked with us for episodes 1 and 2. We can, as I said, I'll get those replays to you. We're also joined by Adrian, our CEO and founder, and myself. My name is Derek. I'm your host for today. So just some housekeeping for you in relation to Zoom. We'd love you to utilize the thumbs up, even thumbs down, maybe if you need to. But there's also Q&A and chat. So if you wanted to ask a question that's visible to everybody, you can use the Q&A in order to do that, and in fact upvote somebody else's question if you had the same question, or if you are rather a more private question, you can use the chat, and that'll come to a member of the team here at our end. So please go ahead and have a little look at that. But at that point, what I'd like to do is hand over to Jackson, who's going to walk us through Oracle's approach to AI. Jackson, over to you.
Thank you, Derek. I love the energy. And just to echo what Derek has opened with, please, like this session is for you guys. So please use the Q&A, use the chat, guide us in making sure that you're getting the most out of this time together. As always, if there's any questions or comments or insights or feedback or anything afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out to Adrian, Derek, or myself. We'd be more than happy to answer your questions or have whatever conversation we want to have around your products, around your services, around your business. Thank you, Derek. Let's launch. All right. So I want to start just talking about AI in general, and I won't spend too much on this because every single day of our lives we hear about artificial intelligence and generative AI and agentic AI and all these other wonderful things. But I guess I want to paint a picture of just the level of investment that goes into the AI that we see today. You might have seen in the news early last year, Google is paying 60 million US a year for access to Reddit's content in order to be able to train its models. Now that's one investment. If you're paying attention to the news over the past few months, you would have seen that OpenAI has signed a deal with Oracle for $30 billion a year. That's the sort of money and investment we're talking about from organizations in the AI space. But it's not perfect, and we're still learning. And you can see on the screen here, there's a fantastic example where somebody has asked Google AI, hey, how tall is Leo Varadkar? And the responses come back to say that he stands at over 160 stories tall, but he's only the 5th tallest politician in Western Europe. Now, you can see where we're coming into some problems. What's the recommendation for smoking while pregnant? Hey, 2 to 3 cigarettes a day is fine. I've found an injured pigeon. What should I do? Well, the first step is remove its head, then cut off its wings, remove its legs. You can see how we're starting to have some challenges we're facing. Geologists at the UC of Berkeley recommend eating small rocks each day. So you get a sort of a feel for the sort of information that we can get from these AI LLMs or these LLMs we have out there, and what level of confidence do we have that we are getting the accurate information? Now we're seeing a huge increase in adoption of AI too. I don't know if you guys remember when ChatGPT was first launched in late 2022, I think it was. By January 2023, they had over 100 million users. It took Instagram 2.5 years to get to that point. So you can see the adoption, and now ChatGPT is a household name. I don't know how many times I hear people say, I use ChatGPT daily. I just ask ChatGPT. AI is going crazy, but we have to be able to trust it. Let's move on, Derek. And when we talk about trust, what does that look like? And so there was a report done not long ago around where we sit in terms of our views of AI. In Australia, our AI IQ, what's our understanding of AI capabilities, etc., we're about average on the global scale of 59% of users saying I'm quite comfortable with my understanding of how AI works. When we talk about trusting AI at work, have a look at that. We're below the global average, but only 40% of people are saying, I trust that AI is doing the right thing by my organization. And you can see why. Like, let's have a look at the concerns around security, 81%. And that sort of ties back to those examples we showed before on the screen around, Leo being 160 stories tall, but still being the fifth largest politician. And what's our confidence in AI, and whether it will deliver the benefits that it promises? And Australians, I think we're a bit of a cynical bunch, but we're below the global average with about 70% of users saying, look, in all honesty, I don't think it's going to bring any value. So a bit of a snapshot in AI adoption globally, and something that a lot of organizations are starting to talk about to address those risks, those concerns, those levels of adoption, etc., are pulling together working groups within their own organizations. There's like an AI innovation and governance office, for example, that's made up of stakeholders from across the various lines of business to look at what AI features are available, conducting like analyses on whether those features will be beneficial to their organization and what are the risks and how do we mitigate those risks. But at the same time, trying to foster the AI adoption to speed up the adoption within the organization so they can get the benefits that are there. And I'll just close there just by painting a bit of a picture of where we sit across all organizations with a view of artificial intelligence. And it kind of bleeds into our vision on the customer experience. With regards to our vision on the customer experience, there are essentially three pillars that we talk about and focusing on. The first is around predictive and generative AI. We want the AI to enhance your business. We want to embed it into business processes, not be a shiny bolt-on extra, but embed it in processes to enable you to be to communicate faster, to be more agile, to get greater insights, etc., etc. Having said that, we also welcome you to bring your own models as well. Personalization. Look, everybody in this room knows exactly what we need to achieve when we talk about personalization. We're talking about that segment of one. We're talking about that experience economy where every single one of our customers wants that unique experience. We're talking to some customers about persona-based journeys and what that looks like, and being able to take the blanket customer journey and saying, oh, hey, there might be 2 or 3 forks in the road for this particular journey, down to saying, here's a unique journey based on a particular persona, and what does that experience look like? And of course, data. We've said in previous webinars that the growth isn't a campaign problem anymore. Growth is a data problem. And I want to talk about 2 things. Number one is the breaking down of silos and bringing data together so that we can market better, so that we can reach out to greater audiences, so that we can personalize our experiences. But going back to our first and second webinars, privacy, consent, opt-in, opt-out preferences, etc. We're at the point now where there can be criminal charges, there can be fines and whatnot placed on us if we don't honor our customers' opt-in and opt-out preferences. And so how do we manage that across our brands, across our channels, across our various offerings? And so enterprise data and activation is also one of our key focuses as part of our vision for the customer experience. Thank you, Derek. All right, so let's dig a little bit deeper into those 3 principles. Let's start with the AI piece, because that's what we wanted to hear about. How does AI fit into our ecosystem? Where a lot of us are Eloqua customers, a lot of us are looking at using other technology in the marketing space. And so what does that mean for us? Well, first and foremost, we want AI included from day one at no additional cost. Now, for the Eloqua customers in the room, you would have noticed recently, back in June, the Advanced Intelligence SKU was made available to you all, meaning that you have access to a few classic AI and generative AI capabilities at no additional cost to you. I just want to call out right now that if you aren't using those, if you're not sure about those features, and we'll touch on those in a second, if you're not sure around the adoption or how to use those within your business processes and your BAU day-to-day life, please reach out to Derek and Adrian. They're the best in the game when it comes to working with you. I know they're working with some customers already and helping them sort of enable these features and get the most out of these features. So please have that conversation with them. Number 2, It's got to be built in. It's got to be part of those processes. For those Eloqua customers that are using some of those generative AI capabilities, you'll note that it's not a tool you have to swivel chair out of Eloqua into another screen or application to use. If you're generating content for your email templates or your SMS templates, the button is right there in that text box. You tick it and put in your prompt and get the text generated to use straight away within the application. Continuously validated and updated and automatically updated. Now this is an interesting one because you saw before the sort of investment that companies are putting into artificial intelligence. And we're talking the millions and the billions of dollars. And so one of the beautiful things about working with someone like Oracle is that we do the heavy lifting for you. We manage all of those, the models, the partnerships, the training of LLMs. We make sure that everything you have is up to date. And we're going to dive into a bit of the architecture behind how the generative AI capabilities work to give you a sort of sense of understanding and a sense of confidence in how the generative AI capabilities within Eloqua do work and give you a bit of confidence in that the prompts you're using and the content that comes back is actionable and real content. And of course, your data. That's the key piece. At no point do we want your data training other LLMs or cross-pollinating with other customer data. We have to, in this day and age, we have to adhere to the strictest of security standards and privacy. We want to make sure there's no personal identifiable information shared outside of the secure environments in which we work in. All right. So what does all of that mean for the people in the room here, for the Eloqua users? Let's have a quick look. And I won't spend too much time here. We'll just go through it quite quickly. But basically, from a security perspective, it's privacy by design. The architecture is built from the ground up using Oracle Cloud infrastructure. All of the security and safety you'd expect from one of the largest vendors in the world is there available to you. If you'd like, I can share some access to some sites so you can see the full sort of transparent, publicly available information on how we manage your data. I don't want to go into details of that in this session because that's not really the core of what we're talking about. But we take a security first approach. Data is encrypted at every single step of the way. We'll talk about the architecture in a second, but we make sure that the PII data is not shared with any LLMs or anybody outside of the Oracle ecosystem. Being transparent, though, I will talk about how our generative AI data centers are currently only in the US, in Chicago. Your classic AI, your predictive, etc., AI capabilities, yes, that operates out of your data center here in Sydney and Melbourne. But some of the AI capabilities available are currently only available in the US with a plan to roll those out to other data centers in the future. I touched on your data, and I want to make this point very clear. When we talk about data security, your data is not used to train the LLM models. I want to make that very clear. And we'll talk about how the models are trained in a minute, but that data is not used to train the Cohere and Llama models. It's completely isolated within the Oracle infrastructure. And because of that, your data privacy is our key. We do not want that data being shared, cross-pollinated with other customers. Each customer's data model remains contained and isolated within that OCI framework. And languages is something. I'll close on this because languages is something that comes up quite a bit. And it's hey Jackson, when are we going to see language support for simplified Chinese or Japanese or Korean or these sort of languages that we use here in the Asia Pacific region? For those with a keen eye, would have noticed that in the 25C release of Eloqua, there was an expansion in the languages available. I'll call it out now, just being transparent that we are looking at building that language set in the future because it's not really the language set that would be the most beneficial to us here in the Asia Pacific region. A lot of European and South American based languages there, but just want to say that there is a view to expand those languages in the future.
Hey, Jackson.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify quick. You're going to go into it here, but yeah, those Gen AI capabilities are available globally, but yeah, it's obviously just the data that's going, or not the data, sorry, the request that's going to Chicago. Is that right?
Yes, 100%. Thank you, Adrian. You've picked me up on a poor use of the language. 100%. So the capabilities that we'll touch on in a second are available to all Eloqua customers. It just means that what I'm saying is that the generative AI or the LLM model that the prompt is going to that brings back that response for you is outside of an Australian data center. And it's a good segue into what we're looking at here. And look, I won't bore everyone with details, but if we start at the left, we'll see you've got your Eloqua tenancy with your data, your users, your profiles, your email templates, all of those wonderful things sit there within your Eloqua tenancy. Now, when you do create a request, let's say, for example, you're wanting to put it in to create an invitation for an open day, in an email. You drag that text box onto the email template, you click the little AI assist button. What happens when I then type in create a 200-word invitation to an open day being held on the 16th of the 18th of September? Sorry. We do a range of things behind the scenes, and within our OCI platform, our Oracle Cloud Infrastructure platform, basically what happens is we look at that. We strip any PII from that data where possible. Now, keeping in mind for the sort of use case we're talking about, a human is entering that information, that request to generate an invitation to an open day. So typically, there's not going to be any PII in there. But if you're using any of the other Oracle products from the Fusion Suite, for example, if we look at the HR world and you're wanting to summarize a staff member's employment history using one of the summarization tools, the AI orchestration component of OCI is stripping the staff member's name and the details from that particular request before it's sent to the LLMs. So the prompt, once it's been sanitized, is sent to the LLM. And look, I'll just stop there quickly too. Your like classic AI and your predictive services and forecasting services, all of that is within that AI orchestration. So when we talk about classic AI and generative AI, it's only those Gen AI requests, those generate some content for me. They're the requests that get moved on to that final stage. What happens? That prompt is once sanitized, is pushed through to our AI service, and we lean on two different LLMs, Cohere Command and Meta's Llama 3, sorry. So with that, with the way that process has been sort of explained is that no actual customer data makes it through to that LLM. It's just your prompt is pushed through. There's no customer data retained on the LLM side. Once the prompt has been actioned and the response is sent back, there's every sort of trace of that action has been removed. And we certainly don't share the data between other organizations or use any of that data to train other models outside of those ones we've talked about. So how are those interesting question I'm sure you're all thinking, how are those Cohere and Llama models trained? Look, there's a lot of IP around this, and they don't publicly state exactly what their sources are. You saw before, Google paying the 60 million a year to access Reddit posts in order to train one of the methods for training their models. But Cohere and Meta are very public in their statements in saying that they're trained from a range of licensed and publicly available data. And what we're talking about there are things like, Wikipedia is public domain, license sets that they can purchase, public posts, public journals, public-facing documentation, etc. The web, there's over 15 trillion points of data that they're accessing in order to train those models. So that's how those models are being trained, and they're constantly being trained and updated to make sure that you're getting the sort of latest and greatest in terms of responses that are coming back from those models. So once the LLM has been engaged, it's taken our prompt, it's generated that 200-word invitation to the open day, it's pushed that response back. There's one final step in the process, and that's when it hits our OCI Gen AI guardrails. And I know this is probably a bit too technical and a bit too boring, but basically what those guardrails do is it's a final check to make sure that what's coming back from those LLMs is suitable, appropriate. We look at the response and make sure there's no toxicity, make sure there's no inappropriate language, make sure the sentiment is correct, make sure there's no repetitiveness in the response. And so there is a final safety check made before that response is pushed back into your Eloqua generative AI email template or SMS template. Now, look, I'm going to stop there because we could talk for hours, and I could bring in some of the nerds, so to speak, some of the more technical people, and we can have those conversations. If anybody has any concerns or has any deeper questions around AI, around how the security around your environments, please, we welcome those conversations, and we can get you in touch with the right people to have those conversations within your organization. All right, so what are the AI capabilities that you have today as part of your Eloqua environment? Let's just jump to the next one there, my friend. And there's essentially 6 core pieces of technology available to you. And the first, that we've talked about Gen AI quite a bit. I'll finish up on talking about the generation of subject lines, email content via SMS, etc. That's available to you. Some of our customers are choosing to enable the classic AI, which is these features we're going to talk about in a second, and not explore the Gen AI. Some business processes don't require that capability. For example, you might have a team that generates the copy for an outbound campaign or outbound emails, and they're using another platform or generating the text themselves. That's okay. We don't need to enable and use all of these features. They're available to you if it supports your business processes. Subject line optimization, I'll be honest, that's a feature that's probably not going to be there for much longer. The reason being is that we're trying to embed that within the subject line generation. So you'll notice that if you're using this functionality, when you're creating a subject line for your email, Eloqua will give you 5 recommendations. What we're trying to get to a point is to say, hey, let's look at your previous 20,000 outbound communications and work out which were the better of those subject lines, and use that knowledge, that machine learning, to guide that subject line generation. That's where we're trying to get to. Send time optimization, I think we all know what that is. I know Adrian likes to open his emails on the train on the way to work every morning. Derek's a weekend guy. He opens his on Saturday afternoon when he's finished with his sporting events for the day. And so how do we make sure that we send the right communication to the right person at the right time where they're most likely to engage? And the bottom 2 down the bottom, and I've sort of jumped around a bit, but fatigue analysis looks at some fantastic machine learning there in being able to identify when our recipients are starting to disengage. But how do we use that? How do we use information knowing that Derek might be oversaturated and starting to disengage, whereas Adrian he's in the sweet spot. He's still engaging with us. And we can start to use that fatigue analysis in things like segmentation, in decision points in our campaigns. We can say, if this segment is oversaturated, maybe wait, maybe push them to another campaign, maybe engage with a different channel, etc., etc. And account intelligence. How are organizations in a B2B context engaging with us? Are they getting the most out of the platform as well? And are they at that right level of engagement to drive the lead scoring models, etc., etc. And again, we can use that in our segmentation, in our lead score models, in our campaigns, etc.
Jackson, we had a good example this morning of somebody who's running an event. I think it goes live in the actual events in about a week's time. And we were just looking at the campaign, and we saw that there were about 1,200 whatever contacts that were just sat and looked like they were going to wait for next year. And we decided we could maybe put a step in there and just send them one more email, as long as they weren't oversaturated or looking like they were, that had too many emails already. We could say the ones that were just right, for example, or possibly inactive, and they would be right for maybe one more reminder, and a little bit safer than sending that email to everybody that might not be opening them.
Perfect. And that's exactly that. They're the stories we want to hear, Adrian. That look, we've got these tools. They're embedded in the process of putting together a campaign. They're at your fingertips. You can use them if you want to. You don't have to. But look, they're there to make you more successful. So that's a fantastic story. When we talk about the expansion of AI available, next slide, please, Derek. And when we talk about the expansion of AI, and we can look at the customer data platforms, and this has been the sort of core focus of the conversation over the past 2 webinars, is how can we use a CDP to strengthen our marketing and sales capabilities with Eloqua and CRMs, etc., etc. And some of the models available to you out of the box are things like predictive lead scoring for contacts and accounts, calculating that CLV, the RFM, churn propensity, what's the likelihood of a repurchase for your CRM systems, like what's the next best action, what's the next best offer for your websites if you're running an e-commerce platform or something, or what's the next best promotion, hyper advanced segmentation and channel recommenders, etc. Lookalike audiences is such a powerful tool to be able to say, hey, I have this contact or this group of contacts, and they're engaging and they're doing everything right. How do I find more people like that within my organization, in my customer base? Those tools are available to you again to be able to expand on that, on those capabilities you have already. All right. Now, I don't have visibility over the chat or Q&A, so if anybody has any questions or comments, please throw them in there. Would love to hear from you guys. So at the start, we talked about those principles around the CX experience, and one of those things we talked about was your data quality. And I want to have a quick conversation and sort of bring back the previous two webinars into how we can use data to better drive our engagement with our customer base and prospective customer base. And so I'll start with a few numbers. And McKinsey and Company published a report earlier this year around what are data-driven organizations, what benefits are they getting over organizations that are still very siloed in their structure. And look, I understand it's not a case of you're not doing it right. Our organizations are incredibly complex. We have, multiple teams managing their own platforms. We have the marketing teams of CRMs and marketing platforms. We have financial data sitting over here in our ERP platforms. We have human capital data. We have asset data. We have all of this data sitting around in various silos. It's not something you've done wrong. It's just the nature of our organizations have become so large, so complex that we have all of this data that's not really being harmonized and we're not getting the most out of it. And so this report looks at the organizations that are starting to harmonize that data and break down those silos and what are the benefits they're experiencing. And you can see here in terms of customer acquisition, knowing your customer, those customers are 23 times more likely to acquire new customers. How phenomenal is that? Getting customers is the hard part. Retaining customers isn't quite as difficult, but also very, very tricky to do. And in this experience economy. And so those data-driven organizations are six times as likely to retain their customers. And as a result of both of those stats, being 19 times more likely to be profitable. That's the end goal, isn't it? So I think that the numbers there speak for themselves, that we need to start to talk about breaking down those silos in our organization, bringing that data together. And this is how we do it. We've talked about it for the past two webinars. We've touched on it. I just want to sort of rehash some of the content and just refresh us on some of the content we have discussed in the past few sessions. And that is around how the CDP works for us. A CDP works by getting all of that siloed data, all of your purchase history, your transactional data, your interactions with your call center, what's happening in your loyalty platform, order history, etc. All of those wonderful things. How are your customers touching your website? How are they touching your apps? How are they using your services? Pulling all of that together and bringing it into a unified platform. Being able to pull out the Jack Hilaires and the Jackson Hilaires and say, well, hang on, this is the same guy. Let's put that together. Taking the unknowns and stitching them to the knowns. Once we know that the user number 6142XY3968 is Jack Hilaire, well, let's stitch those known and unknowns together and build a single customer record within our system. And now we have visibility over this data. What can we do with it? Let's look at the campaign history and how we've engaged with our email and SMS and app communications, etc., marketing and advertising, and build models. We saw those before on the screen. There's AI models and intelligent attributes, next best offer, next best action, lookalike audiences, etc. And then taking it to the next step, and that's activating that data, pushing segments up to Eloqua, personalization of the web experience. What analytics can you draw upon having full visibility over that data? And I'm going to show, if at the end of today's session, we'll just show a little bit of what analytics might look like tomorrow for us. Next best promotion and advertising, getting segments out to the right channels so you're not wasting money on valuable money and resources on segments out to Meta and Google, etc., making sure that you have the right segments set there. Next best offer, next best action to your CRM teams, to your sales teams, and persona-based journeys. The most important thing we can talk about is if we know more about our customers, we can make sure that their journey through organization is tailored to them.
Jackson, I was just going to say, I think there's almost another layer to this on the customer side. And that is when you start to look at more complex relationships, like different contacts that are related to accounts, that are related to opportunities. Not all our contacts are equal. Some are decision makers. Some have different roles in the organization. We have students and parents. We have all these different relationships, households, but we have different relationships, and even understanding those so that we can make decisions about communications and timeliness and next best action, just multiplies. So starting to think about how we can do ABM at another whole level, that's the sort of thing that's kind of now much more achievable than it was trying to do this through, kind of a CRM based approach.
That's a great call out, Adrian. And we are working with a customer at the moment who's in the retail game, and I'm not going to name any customers or give anything else away at the moment, but they're looking at Father's Day and saying, okay, if we have, let's say, 3 individuals, Adrian, Jackson, and Derek, all living in the same household, we know that Adrian's purchase preference is for particular type of product, well, we're going to send Jackson and Derek specials, knowing that they're probably looking for products and gifts to purchase for Adrian. And that's what they're doing. That's what we're competing against at the moment. You're 100% correct. And look, just to call out back to the very first webinar as well, where we did talk a lot about sort of compliance, and you have brands, you have departments, you have faculties, you have different CRMs, you have different platforms, you've got marketing orchestration platforms, you've got all of these wonderful, fantastic pieces of technology that might be collecting data on your customers' preferences, and ensuring that you honor those preferences across the entire ecosystem that you're operating within is a complex thing to do. And a CDP in your organization makes that a lot easier to manage as you get that whole view. All right. Next slide, Derek, gives us a bit of a snapshot on what it might look like within your organization. And look, this is a very, very generic diagram because we have attendees here from multiple industries in ANZ here. But if we start at the bottom left and work our way around, you can see things like we can ingest campaign metrics, engagement, brand engagement, etc., etc. We can pull that in. Orders, purchase histories, what's the status of the order, etc. Pull that in, the value of the orders, invoicing, payment statuses, any fraud alerts, anything like that. We can pull that into the CDP. We have a bank in India that's currently using this technology to be able to say, hey, this particular customer's credit limit is $10,000, for example, but the current credit card is capped at 5K. When they go to make a purchase, if the card is declined because they don't have a high enough credit limit, we get an indication straight away. The system has a quick check to make sure they are eligible for a higher credit limit, and then sends a notification to that customer within minutes to say, look, we noticed you tried to make a purchase. This didn't go through because your credit limit's not high enough. Do you want to increase that now? Now, look, in some countries, we have legislation and regulations in place to say that we can't do that. That's not appropriate behavior, but that's the sort of use cases we're looking at around, actionable data as quickly as possible. Website traffic, event streams, your locations. We'll touch on that when we talk analytics in a second. What's happening in your CRM systems in terms of those relationships, those accounts, service request opportunities, etc. And what can we share back to those source systems from a CDP? Back to your marketing platform, like hyper-focused advanced segmentation, ensuring the opt-in and opt-out compliance, recommending appropriate channels based on how our customers are engaging with us across our whole ecosystem. What offers and promotions are appropriate for customers who might be purchasing or ordering from your e-commerce platform. At your website, let's personalize the website experience and the app experience for our customers to start to build that that relationship with your brand. Back to the CRM, I've used this example a few times already. Like next best action, next best offer, those intelligent attributes, partnerships, relationships, etc., etc. So you can see there's a whole range of information that you can benefit from. And I'll just invite you all to sort of take pause there and just think, within your specific organization, what data are you collecting on customers, on vendors, on whoever it happens to be, that is sitting somewhere, and how could you use that data to help in what you do on your day-to-day life? So you might get some examples on the page there, some ideas off the page, but just think about that. All right, Derek, one more slide, and that is, with that data we have, all of us in the room, or most of us in the room, are Eloqua customers. How can we use that to strengthen Eloqua, to strengthen our current investment? And we've talked about a few of these already. That advanced segmentation and refined targeting, that full view of your customer and where they are in the sort of journey through your organization. If we're in the higher ed space and we're talking about customers that we're just starting to engage with through a campaign, through a nurture campaign, are we inviting them to an open day, or are we looking at these customers and saying, hey, we know you're an alumni, would you like to come back for a particular micro-credential or short course for the non-traditional learners, because we know you're engaged and employed in that space. Improving the lead scoring models we have and decreasing churn, delivering that consistent omni-channel experience, SMS, app, website, etc., etc. And of course, hailing back to the first conversation we had back in webinar number 1 was enriching and ensuring compliance, which, as Derek sort of scared us all a bit at the start when he talked about the changes in legislation and the roadmap up to the changes that we saw in December last year. So just a few ways that we can enrich the current investment that we have. All right. We'll just talk quickly on roadmap and what tomorrow looks like for you all. To see some of the cool and shiny toys that we're getting in the future. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. there'll be a slide later that has access to various resources such as the Replay Center and the and other resources available to you. If you don't know of them already, check out the Cloud Customer Connect or talk to the good people at Marketing Cube. They can work with you to talk about what Eloqua is looking like in the future. But essentially, we talked about for this recent release things like the non-English support, etc., and enhancing that Redwood experience for a more unified and modern sort of viewpoint of the Eloqua platform. But what does tomorrow look like? We're doing some interesting things where we're starting to again build on that Redwood experience, that modern experience, but some of the under the covers stuff, like strengthen integrations with other platforms like your CRM, etc., so you can start to action that data from Eloqua a lot more. The really exciting stuff is happening, and I had a conversation with one of our members of product management just this morning at 8 o'clock this morning, and I was surprised to learn that those future state items are closer than we think. And that's things like generating images from a prompt within Eloqua, content summarization of blogs and video transcripts, etc., and being able to summarize those into your email campaigns, etc. And something we'll look at in just a few minutes very quickly is like using natural language to be able to generate reports and metrics, and to be able to generate segments in Eloqua and not have to drag and drop and use that WYSIWYG editor, which, don't get me wrong, is fantastic. And if a semi-evolved monkey like myself can use it, then that's a credit to the tool. But being able to use natural language to build out those segments, it's closer than we think, which is really exciting stuff. There's a page that has resources available to you, Derek. If you can just flash that on the screen, and then we might just jump over and quickly have a look at some analytics in a few minutes and just see what the world of tomorrow looks like. I'm using a higher education focus for this part of today's conversation, but I just want to touch on when we talk about talking to your data in using natural language. I just want to show you exactly what that looks like in terms of what tomorrow's experience is going to be. We're looking at a platform here. It's called Fusion Data Intelligence. It's a tool that has pre-built KPIs for our Fusion customers. It's a fantastic tool for bringing in data from your sales, your service, your marketing, etc. But I'm just using it here from a marketing context, using data that we'd get out of the Eloqua platform. And we can see we have a whole bunch of metrics on this page. I don't want to spend too much time on those, and I just want to talk about how we can start to use some of this data in a fun way. What we're seeing on the left here is we're seeing a way we can look at where our visitors are touching our websites. Where are they located? Through our site tags, we understand their geo coordinates or the city with a certain level of confidence. So we can say, hey, these are the hot points in Queensland. I'm focusing on Queensland here. These are the hot points where our audience is looking at us. And looking at our campaigns, using some of the machine learning we talked about before in the AI capabilities of OCI to say, here's our open rates and our click-through rates, etc. But can we forecast for tomorrow? Can we plan for tomorrow? And so we can look at those. For the data nerds out there, yes, there's different models we can use. The ARIMA, I'm using Profit at the moment, but there's certain models there we can use. And that's all good. This is just data, right? It's cool. We can get this data. We can also see this data. We've all got, analytics platforms. What's so special? Well, let's have a look at this map here. Now, I'm putting together a report for my CMO around where the engagement is on our website. And this is a fantastic representation, but how do I put this onto a document to share? And one of the really cool things we can do is just change this report type from a map to a narrative report. And what I'm seeing is that the system has gone and pulled out all of that data we saw on that screen and said, hey, here's some information that's relevant to you, that might be as exciting for you. And we can now cut and paste or move this data into a report to share, or an email, or notes for a ministerial conversation, etc., etc. So we have that capability to take the visualization and convert it to narrative text. But we also have the capability to say to the platform as well, I'm going to close that now actually, look, what don't I know? You can see we have the dashboard that's pre-built, and in some organizations, if I want to change that dashboard, that's a request to the IT guys. One of the data guys or the analyst gets together and builds that out for us. But I want to get my own insights. I don't want to have to ask for something. And what if I don't really know what I'm looking for? And that's where our platform can run out and say, well, let's look at all of that data you have in that CDP in your data repository, and let's start to build engaging reports with a description to show you exactly what might be of interest to you. And you can see by hovering over it, I get a description of exactly what that report's telling me. And then if I'm happy with that, I can drag that onto my dashboard and build out my dashboard that way. And that's good and all. But what if I'm wanting something very, very specific? And that's where our assistant can come in handy and help us. Now, I'm just going to use a very, very basic prompt, and I'm just going to ask it, which 5 campaigns had the highest open rate percent based off outbound traffic. And it takes a second. Now, if you remember that diagram before, this prompt gets sent to OCI services, data is stripped, etc. The prompt is sent through the LLM, it comes back. And this is the outcome where we get a list of the 5 highest performing campaigns that we've had. Now, that's cool, right? Whatever. That's just challenging and questioning and interrogating the data that we have in our systems. But what if we want to talk about something outside of that? An example I'll use is I'll put that same prompt in. What I'm going to say is I'm going to add the words during COVID. And the reason I've added during COVID is because COVID's 3 things. It's an infectious disease. It's a period of time. We all talk about, hey, remember that time during COVID, blah, blah, blah. But it's also nowhere in this data set. Nowhere in this data set is the word COVID mentioned or anything about COVID, and the times in which we had to work through the COVID pandemic. And so when we're talking to our data, we can look outside of our data sets and start to bring in sort of different context and whatnot. And so I've said, which 5 campaigns had the highest open rate during COVID? And what the system's doing right now is it's going out and saying, well, what the hell is COVID? It's those 3 things, right? It's it's that infectious disease, it's that period of time. Well, what's the disease got to do with our open rates? Nothing. Let's look at the context of it being a period of time. And you can see it's added a filter over here to say that COVID was a pandemic that started in 2019 and continued through to at least 2022. So now we've applied a filter to our reports to say, hey, these are the top 5 campaigns during that COVID period. And so although that was a very basic example, you can just get a feel for what tomorrow looks like in terms of talking to your data, interrogating your data, getting the most out of your data. And you can appreciate that in order for platforms like this and what tomorrow looks like in terms of those analytics, like a solid data foundation is core to be able to use these tools effectively and get the most out of those tools. I'll stop sharing there. I think we've reached our time, and everyone's probably sick of hearing me bang on.
Well, I'm not sure we're sick or tired. That was great. What do you call yourself? An advanced monkey? Was that the description?
Semi-evolved. I would never say
semi-evolved. Right. Okay. Right.
But look, that's the truth of it. And I mean, it's one of the powerful things about Eloqua is that if someone like me can build engaging campaigns and email templates and whatnot, like that is a huge credit to everybody in this room and the platform as well. That it's such a simple program to use. You can do an infinite number of things with it, and the data underpinning that platform is really key to getting the most out of it.
Absolutely. Well, look, I suppose the next step then is for us to see if we have any questions, which I'm going to tell you there are no questions, which blows my mind. We've got quite a few people on the line here. I can see, Alex and Jessica and Nina and Pam and a few others that we know. There must be questions, but if there's not, that's okay. We can manage that. I just wanted to quickly revisit the privacy component, Jackson. That we've obviously been paying quite a bit of attention to that here at Marketing Cube with a range of different resources for people. And the nice thing about the CDP, we did touch on this on replay 1, so I would certainly encourage people to go back to replay 1, is the ability to have that in a single place, have a single source of truth, and having CDP help us bring that together so that the CRM team knows, or the call center team knows that XYZ person has opted out maybe of email communications, and that's our focus obviously in this part of the world. But then it's, what about telephone communications, outbound phone calls and SMS communications and I mean, goodness gracious, what about direct mail? I mean, it's a bit retro, but it is becoming a bit more vogue again, right? So it's putting that whole picture together, and CDP can do that really, really well. So yeah, there's loads of information coming. We're starting to hear a few more whispers out of Canberra as to what's happening, and we just saw it again this morning. The Privacy Commissioner giving Kmart a rap over the knuckles after they gave Bunnings a rap over the knuckles because they've been spying on us when we come into the stores and not telling us, and etc. So yeah, look, there's lots of things happening out there in the privacy space that we all need to keep up on. So we'll share links to that as well in all of our post comms, so people, if they do have any questions, can come to that. Adrian, did you have anything you want to wrap up on?
The only thing that sort of jumped out to me, I think, is that even with the inbuilt components, there's a learning curve, and whilst it might be immediately apparent, you go, oh, send time optimization, how can it be that hard? Once you start to use it in reality, there's a few nuances to how you might best use it and how to best apply it. And the same with subject line generation or those sorts of things. It's how do I get it on brand, and how do I get it to link to my strategy, and how do I know it's not generic and the same as everybody else's? And of course, some of that comes down to the prompts and how you use it, and where you're using these tools. So we've been doing a lot of learning in that space, and so yeah, if we can share any of those tips with anybody, then just reach out to us, and happy to kind of expand on that as we go.
I did notice that Jackson, you had put together some great resources, which I'll just quickly share for people. So if you want to grab their phones and QR code scan those, we'll of course share these again in our post-event comms, but feel free to scan any of those. If there are no questions in our Q&A, which I think is still looking pretty empty, we will wrap up there and get all this information over to everybody. So Jackson, thank you so much for making some time to be with us today. We really appreciate it. Adrian, thanks for your input, and we look forward to seeing everybody at the next session, and we'll keep you up to date with the art of what's possible and what's going on. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.